Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my series of RHCSA practice sessions where I'm going over the different topics for on the objectives list and seeing if I can speak intelligently about them and maybe explain how they would be used in the real world and do some demonstrations of how to do some of the tasks that could be associated with these objectives in preparation for taking my cert exam. And generally by the end of these videos I have an idea of if I really know the topic or if I need to go back and spend a bit more time on it. As always, these aren't necessarily intended to be authoritative information, but I do try to present accurate information to you, and perhaps I might present some things in a way that you have not considered before with your own training, and it might help you understand concepts better. Before I dive in, I want to remind you, if you enjoy the content of the video, please click like and also subscribe and ring the bell when you do so you can be aware when new content comes available. So the objective for this video is going to be under the Manage Security part of the Red Hat Certified System Administrator objectives, and this is create and use file access control lists. And it's similar to, I believe there was a topic earlier that dealt with ACLs, access control lists. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to try to do a couple of different examples with that. First thing I'm going to do, though, I'm going to install Git Core, because I'm going to pull down a little script that I made for setting up an environment for access control lists. So let me do yum install Git Core-y. That shouldn't take too terribly long. I'm going to grab my script real quick, clone gitlab.com, Eddie Jennings, and I believe it's URL. It's RHCSA practice.git. Yep, there it is. Alright, so I'm going to run this script bash. I know I have to run it as sudo, just the way I wrote the script. And let's do first username. We'll do Hanabi. And for Hanabi, password monkey123, the best password ever. And then we'll do Hinata. And we'll make hers be monkey321. Alright, first group, let's call it Huga. And second group, Leaf. Yep, those are the ones I want. And we'll put Hanabi in the Huga group and Hinata in the Leaf group. Alright, so what my little script does is make some, actually it's within the RHCSA test directory, is make some folders and subfolders to prepare for being able to use the access control list. The whole idea behind access control lists is it gives you a little more fine-grained control over access files, assuming a file system supports it, better than what you would have with just typical read, write, and execute privileges that you can have for the user owner, the group owner, or others. Not all file systems support them. I know XFS does. I'm fairly sure ext4 does. I can't remember off the top of my head if ext4 supports it by default. If it doesn't, I'm sure you can look at man pages for mounting an ext4 file system or creating an ext4 file system and enabling access control lists, but I know XFS does. So One of the main uses I've found with access control lists, like I said, give you a little more fine-grained access. One thing that I have learned that's kind of a gotcha is when you're troubleshooting some access issues and access control lists are in play, it can be a bit of a challenge. And what I suggest is, as far as user group and other privileges, try to have those pretty much set in stone to where you're not going to need to change those often. So when you do changes, you're going to make it to your access control list. So I'm going to sudo into root, and let me go into the test directories here. This ls-lr. That you can see I have a couple of subdirectories and such. So first thing I want to do with the access control list is, so if you're in the Hugo group, then you have access to the Hugo folder, and you can do whatever you would like with it. And then likewise leaf group with the leaf folder. But let's say that I wanted to grant the leaf users read access to the Hugo folder. All right, well, I can't really do that unless I as of right now, I can't do that unless I either grant some read privileges to this, or I put the users that are in leaf in the Hugo group, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the two separate groups there. So the solution would be an access control list. And the way that we'll do that is set FACL. We are modifying an access control list, and what we are doing is group leaf is going to have read privileges on Hugo. No errors, that's generally good. If I were to do ls-l, notice that there's now a plus sign. So another thing with troubleshooting, if you're trying to figure out, man, I can't see why these permissions are being screwy, if you see that plus sign, you know there is an access control list to play. So you can do get FACL or get facal Hugo, and you can see that the group leaf has read privileges for this particular this folder. Now notice it says mask here. What the mask represents is the maximum possible permissions that could be set on this particular folder. And this is where I'm saying the privileges can be a bit screwy. Let's say that I change mode on Hugo to 000. Alright, so Hugo has no more privileges, right? And we have the plus sign, it still has an access control list. If I were to do get facal on Hugo, we see that there is still the read privilege. However, the maximum privileges that you can have on this are 0, and so the effective privilege for it is 0. And so that's where, ideally, and this is my opinion. If you have an opinion about this, feel free to put it in the comments. Is if you're going to be dealing with access control lists, try to have the normal user group other privileges pretty much set, and then do your fine-grained control there. It's kind of like in the Windows world when you're dealing with file shares. You'll often set the share privileges, and a lot of times you'll set those to full access, and then do the actual work with NTFS permissions for the particular files and directory. This is the same kind of idea. If you're going to be using access control lists, have them do the heavy lifting. So let's change this back. Change mode 770 to Hugo. Alright, and ls-l, that looks good. Get facal, Hugo, get, not gif. And we're back to good old mask the way that we want. So let's start another tab, and we're going to SU into Hinata. We did what? Monkey 321 is her password. Yep. All right. So now we're on Hinata, and let's go into our RHCSA test directory. We see Huga and Leaf, and we can CD into Leaf and be able to get to the other folders there: cat, private projects, Leaf's private projects. Now, if I were to go back a couple of levels, actually let's just go back to the root of that, and I go into the Huga folder. So ls-l get fackle notice that Leaf should be able to read what's in that folder. Let's see what happens. So let's see if we can CD into Huga, and we can't. Permission is denied. All right, let's see if we can ls Huga. That we can do. We can't get information about the public and private projects folder because that's denied. That's still having others with none, and we can't CD into it because for folders you need to have the execute privilege. But that did grant the read privilege. So if I wanted to be able to CD into these folders, let me go back to my root, and we're going to set FACL. We're modifying group Leaf. We're modifying this to read execute on Huga. Still have our access control lists. Get fackle Huga. And we see that Leaf now has read execute. We can't write to it, but we should be able to CD into the folder. So let's try that. And lo and behold, we can CD into the folder now. And we're able to list the contents of this. Now we cannot CD into the public and private projects folder. That's not going to work. So one thing to consider with access control lists is something called a default access control list. Now, right now, if we were to make a public and private projects, another folder in here, it's going to have the exact same permissions as it did. But let's say that I wanted, henceforth the Leaf folks to be able to read and execute any of the folders that are in the Huga folder tree. Well, there what I would want to do is set a default access control list. So to do that, we're going to set FACL-D for default, M, G group Leaf, read write Huga. And let's get FACL Huga. And notice how, in addition to Leaf having this permission, we now have a default permission. All right. That does not affect folders that are already there, though. So if I were to, actually, I'm going to do one other thing. I want to set GID because I want any resulting folders to also be owned by the group owner. So let me do that real quick. Change mode, G plus S, Huga. There we go. All right, so let's go into Huga, and we're going to make a test directory. Notice how test directory has an access control list, and that access control list is going to grant Leaf the permission. Now, one thing I'm curious about, if I were to get rid of the default access control list, because this I just quite frankly can't remember off the top of my head. So if I were to, I think that is either B or -K. So let's take a look at the man pages. K is default, B is remove all. So we're going to set FACL -K on Hugo. Alright. Get Facl Hugo. We see that the default is gone. And now let's make another directory, test2. Alright. Notice how test2 does not have an access control list set to it. However, it does have read execute, and that I believe is going to be because of UMask. It's not going to be inheriting that. Yep, and that would make sense. 7 minus 2 is 5, so read execute. Whereas your access control list, notice that it would have inherited that. So a question that would come up is, all right, so let's say I already have this public and private projects. How would I do set access control list recursively? I believe you can do that. Let's double check. I can't remember off the top of my head. Is there a, yep, there's a capital R for recursive, so that would work as well. So really the takeaway from this particular video is the idea of the access control lists. They are going to give you more fine-grained permission, but at the cost of complexity. And if you need to have access control lists inherited throughout your file and folder structure, you will need to be setting your default access control lists at whatever the root of your file system is. As far as breaking inheritance, I'm not 100% sure if you can do that or not. If you have experience with access control lists and know about breaking inheritance, by all means list that, because I know in the Windows world dealing with NTFS permissions, you can both cause problems with breaking inheritance, but at the same time get some really more fine-grained control over what's going on. So I hope you enjoyed the content of the video. I hope it was helpful for you, and perhaps it gave you some ideas on things to do for yourself as far as training and preparing with access control lists. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.